The man who tried to kidnap Nancy Pelosi and assaulted her husband was a Trump supporter. Yes, that's right. Charlie Kirk was the guy who laughed about this, who actually did a show and tried to raise money to help defend the person who bludgeoned and almost killed Paul Pelosi. So there's a lot of weird things that happened yesterday after the shooting. And again, Leonard, I emphasize this because I've been very consistent on this, even though I was not and never was a Charlie Kirk fan.
I'm not either.
I'm not here to defend Charlie Kirk. I never will. My thoughts and prayers certainly are heartfelt that go out to his family, his 2 kids that were there, his wife. It's just a horrible tragedy. And by the way, everybody else, Leonard, that was there that day was traumatized in one way or another. So I had a chance to speak last night, and he might join me on the show tomorrow. Parker. Everybody knows who Parker is. Parker was there. He was supposed to be asking the first question, and he told me yesterday he showed up a little late. He was 30 feet from the stage. Hopefully he'll be able to join us on the show tomorrow and give us 10 minutes. He was very, what's the word I'm looking for? Certainly traumatized, and he did not sound like himself yesterday on the phone.
Well, have somebody shot dead, literally feet from you.
I've never witnessed somebody get murdered before. I never want to, and sadly everybody that was there on that university yesterday did, and that's traumatic. And so I spoke with Parker last night, and he was certainly traumatized. And I said, listen, don't come on tomorrow. He's flying back from Utah today. I said, maybe we can get you on the phone for 10 minutes just to get his witness account of what happened. And when I was on the air yesterday at around the 5 to 10 minute mark, and Numchuck did a really good job at giving me the latest information, because it's very difficult for me to host a show and try to figure out what's going on at the same time. Numchuck did a good job of keeping me up to date. And when he showed me the worst of all the video angles of Charlie Kirk being shot yesterday, I mean, I just wanted to vomit. It was very difficult to watch. And that's instilled in my brain. Here's someone that I might disagree with that's talking about gun control, and then the next second later, he's gone. 2 children, don't have a father, and it's... I will ask you this question, though, before I get to some audio cuts. Now, I understand that Donald Trump put the flags at half-mast. Why didn't he do that after the Minneapolis, Minnesota shooting, where a bunch of innocent children that were praying were shot and killed? Why does he do it for Charlie Kirk? And by the way, I don't have a problem with him doing it for Charlie Kirk. But why does Donald Trump do it for Charlie Kirk and not doing it for innocent children that lost their lives in a school shooting?
I think he's so self-centered that the political theater and the theater of the moment is more important to him than the actual empathy and the actual caring and the actual making a statement to the public. I mean, one of the first things he said was he blamed the liberal left rhetoric, and we don't even have someone in custody, so we have no idea. It could have been someone who didn't like Charlie Kirk for whatever reason.
Right.
Or he was there because he just wanted to have attention, or maybe somebody important just came finally to his tiny little town. It could have been he was obviously deranged. He was homicidal, and he wanted to shoot someone, but we don't know why. And for the president to speculate and blame the left automatically, that's just political theater, and it's inappropriate. It's beneath the office of the president, in my opinion. I don't think he should have done that.
So speaking of which, I wanted to play you some audio clips. And I can play you 50 clips if I wanted to from the reaction from the right, and some of these people on the right are just such clowns.
Online, they're saying some terrible stuff.
So let's start with Joni Ernst, who's a complete imbecile. But before I get to Joni Ernst, I do want to play you Donald Trump, speaking of imbeciles. So I did find it interesting that, it took Donald Trump 4 hours to make a statement on January 6th. But it seemed like within an hour,
they were begging him to say something. They were in his. Yeah. They testified. They were in the room saying, "Please tell them to stop." And he was just watching.
Yep.
And
but here's why I bring up Donald Trump, because Donald Trump, in his statement, he's incapable of bringing people together. And here's Donald Trump in his statement yesterday, blaming the rhetoric of the radical left, not even knowing who the shooter is, blaming the radical left. Listen to this.
For years, those on the radical left have compared wonderful Americans like Charlie to Nazis and the world's worst mass murderers and criminals. This kind of rhetoric is directly responsible for the terrorism that we're seeing in our country today, and it must stop right now. My administration will find each and every one of those who contributed to this atrocity and to other political violence, including the organizations that fund it and support it, as well as those who go after our judges, law enforcement officials, and everyone else who brings order to our country. From the attack on my life in Butler, Pennsylvania last year, which killed a husband and father, to the attacks on ICE agents, to the vicious murder of a healthcare executive in the streets of New York, to the shooting of House Majority Leader Steve Scalise and 3 others, radical left political violence has hurt too many innocent people and taken too many lives.
The last person I want to hear talking about political violence and incitement is Donald Trump. January 6th does not happen if not for Donald Trump. And even worse, Donald Trump called those people hostages and patriots, some of whom beat police officers. But he wants to blame the radical left. So I'm just curious to all of you. The man who targeted and killed Democratic State Representative Melissa Hortman, was that a liberal? No. That was a Trump supporter. The man who targeted the home of Democrat Governor Josh Shapiro was not a liberal. It was a Trump supporter. The men who wanted to hang Mike Pence on January 6th were not liberals. They were Trump supporters, including those who beat police officers and destruction of property. And the man who targeted and killed the son of Obama-appointed District Judge Esther Salas was a Trump supporter, not a liberal, not a lefty. The man who tried to kidnap Nancy Pelosi and assaulted her husband was a Trump supporter. Yes, that's right. Charlie Kirk was the guy who laughed about this, who actually did a show and tried to raise money to help defend the person who bludgeoned and almost killed Paul Pelosi. It was Charlie Kirk that thought it was funny. The man who tried, the men, I should say, who were convicted of trying to kidnap Democrat Governor Gretchen Whitmer were not liberals or lefties. They were Trump supporters. The man who sent pipe bombs to the homes of Barack Obama and Joe Biden was a Trump supporter. The guy who sent pipe bombs to CNN was a Trump supporter. The Texas El Paso shooter who killed a bunch of innocent brown people in a Walmart and in his manifesto did nothing but praise Donald Trump and his rhetoric.
Did we talk about Melissa Hortman and her husband?
Yeah, I mentioned that as well.
And that was only, what, a couple of months ago?
These people were all Trump supporters. Now, I don't like, after a tragedy, and immediately after a tragedy, as I didn't yesterday, to blame a side of the political aisle. But everybody on the right, for the most part, are blaming liberals and Democrats when, number one, they don't even know who the shooter is. We just have a few pictures from the FBI, and it doesn't even clearly show the race of the individual, and the shirt that individual is wearing certainly doesn't seem like somebody that's a lefty, but we don't know. But they want to blame liberals and Democrats?
Why are they threatening historically black colleges? Let me ask you that.
Yeah.
How come they are the number one threat? There's 8 or 9 that are on the list that are being threatened, and it was, I'm assuming the shooter looks white. At least they're saying he's possibly white. And so why are they threatening historically black colleges when the shooter hasn't even been taken into custody yet? That makes no sense.
It makes
at
no
all.
sense. I completely agree with you. But I want to play you some audio of Joni Ernst. And I want to play you some audio from right-wing Republicans yesterday that are blaming the left and liberals. Before I do so, I want to tell you, I was supposed to have somebody on this program. Her name is Isabel Maria Daluca. She was arrested on January 6th. She is a large political social media influencer who was friends with Charlie Kirk. I didn't want to have her on to demonize her. I didn't want to have her on to attack her beliefs. She was going to come on this show today, and then she sent me an email that said, let me be clear, I cannot and will not align myself with anyone who attempts to justify what happened. Let me be very clear on that. What a despicable thing to say.
Nobody
Never
justified that.
have I ever justified yesterday, today, or ever political violence in any way, shape, or form. And what happened yesterday was murder. It was disgusting. And I said it over and over again, and I would not allow yesterday people to call into the show and say negative things about Charlie Kirk, even though I don't defend him. But she won't come on the show because she doesn't want to defend her statements on social media, blaming the left. They killed Charlie Kirk. Who's they? There's one person that's responsible for this or that we know. We don't even know who it is. But listen to Joni Ernst and listen to her despicable comments that she made on national television yesterday about this shooting.
It has gone way too far. Political violence is never the answer. It is never the solution. And what we are finding is that when you do have those strong conservative voices speaking truth to power, you will find that when the left can no longer debate it, they can't deny the truth, the only way they can silence those voices is through violence. That's how Charlie met his end yesterday. He will be forever remembered, not only by those of us on the right, but also by an entire generation of young students, young men and women, and he will continue to inspire.
You idiot.
What's wrong with her?
First of all, she has no idea who the shooter is. Second of all, was she saying that you silence voices through violence? Was she making those statements on January 6th or any of those other crimes that were carried out by MAGA Republicans? She doesn't even know who the shooter is, and she's saying they, liberals, Democrats, silence voices through violence.
MAGAs are confused. They can't tell the difference between somebody who has a different opinion and your enemy. That's one and the same to them. And they think we think the same way, but we don't. And what you said yesterday and the way you articulated that you don't agree with Charlie Kirk and that you think in some ways he's despicable for his positions, you don't agree with the violence. You have empathy. You're thinking about his wife and his kids and his family. And why didn't the president come out and say that and say, hey, you know what? I don't condone political violence. And you may not have liked this guy, but what happened is not right. And you need to have some empathy and some prayers for his family. Why was there no dignity in what the president said?
I agree with you there. And then there's people like Markwayne Mullen, who again is blaming the left for all the political violence in this country and putting it all on the left to apologize. Have a listen to what Markwayne Mullen had to say yesterday.
They robbed a voice that spoke common sense because of their hatred to people that disagree with them, but yet they're the ones that try to champion free speech. But we're not the ones out there trying to silence them through violence. It's ridiculous. And I know, Sean, that I'm not the only one out there hurting, and I'm not the only one that's upset by this. But when is enough enough? When is the Democrats going to stand up and apologize for the hatred and the lies that they have fed their base that's led to these actions?
When are the Democrats going to apologize for the lies? By the way, I don't know what lies he's referring to that appeal to their base. Donald Trump and MAGA Republicans for years have said that Trump won the 2020 election. It's why we had something called January 6th. Donald Trump and his supporters are the ones that campaigned on they're eating the cats and the dogs. Donald Trump and his supporters are the ones that continue to demonize and attack minorities, transgenders in this country. And Markwayne Mullen, just like many of these other Republican turds out there, use the term they. They took out Charlie Kirk. They. Well, who's they? Because last I checked, they is one human being, reportedly, we don't even know that for sure, at least one person that we know of. We don't know this person's name. We don't know this person's political affiliation. For all we know, this person could be a Republican who didn't like Charlie Kirk. We have no idea. But Markwayne Mullen is saying they took out Charlie Kirk. And he's not the only Republican idiot that is making statements like that. No, it's not they. They did not take out Charlie Kirk. We know of one person at a minimum, but most likely one person that was responsible for taking out Charlie Kirk. We don't know his political affiliation. We don't know his motives. We don't know anything. And they want to blame half of the country? These Republicans are despicable human beings. For them to say they took out, that'd be like me saying every Republican is an insurrectionist. Everybody who supports Donald Trump is an insurrectionist. Every Republican beat cops on January 6th. Now, of course I wouldn't say that because it's not true, and it's asinine. That's what Markwayne Mullen is saying, and that's what these MAGA Republicans said on national TV yesterday and this morning. They took out Charlie Kirk. They took out the biggest voice in our party. No, they didn't take out anybody, you idiots. It was one person, most likely, and you don't even know who that is.
He's just trying to get clicks. He's trying to get more clicks and more views on the back of somebody being murdered, and I think it's despicable. That's just my opinion.
I agree. And then there's Mike Johnson, Let's
Oh,
play
my God.
his audio next. Now, Mike Johnson was asked on CNN about this horrible murder that took place yesterday, and listen to what Mike Johnson has to say. It's just, listen to what he said. What a hypocrite.
It's clear you've had people who have resorted to political violence because they were encouraged along by the dialogue out in the public square, and some of that is put forward by elected officials and people with large platforms, large social media platforms, and they're saying and doing things that make it personal, and people direct their anger to individuals. I mean, this is not who we are. We're better than this. We need to be setting an example as Americans.
What an absolute joke. I wonder which people Mike Johnson is talking about with those large platforms that call people names. Maybe that person could be Donald Trump. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there because he does it every day. Or maybe it's an Elon Musk. Or maybe it's a Laura Loomer who was blaming the left for what took place to Charlie Kirk yesterday. I can name you so many people with large platforms on the right. That's what they do. They literally make money off of this. And then when somebody like Paul Pelosi is bludgeoned with a hammer and almost is killed, they make jokes about it. And they say it was a gay relationship. And people, yes, I'm going to bring his name up, like Charlie Kirk, who joked about the attack on Paul Pelosi, who said empathy is a bad thing, not a good thing. So I want to ask you this, Destiny, because I think we all were obviously scared by what took place the other day, and I'm afraid of possible retribution. You're one of the biggest faces on the left, certainly one of the largest, most popular streamers around. Are you scared? Like, because you make a lot of public appearance. You know, you do stuff in public. You did the Jubilee thing. You get yourself out there. Does this scare you after what just took place the other day? And have you said to yourself, man, you know, this could happen to any one of us?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty frightening. I mean, it's a thing that you've always kind of contended with if you're in this space and you're going out to places. Like, there have been isolated shootings in the past. There have been influencers that have been killed by crazy stalker people. It feels really bad, I guess. But I mean, at this point, I don't expect the president of the United States to do anything responsible for his citizens. It's pretty bad to see the president ratchet up the rhetoric, and then to see people like Matt Walsh and the Daily Wire basically doing explicit calls for civil war or violence. Like, the next person that gets killed in this, whether it's right or left, I would place the blame squarely on their shoulders. Maybe they get off to stuff like that. You know, I saw some tweet with 100,000 some likes where some guy was like, he typed like 20 paragraphs of stuff talking about how he's watching Charlie Kirk getting killed on repeat just to radicalize himself more and more. And it was like one of the most unhinged things I've ever seen in my life. So yeah, I mean, it's pretty sad, but I mean, this is the road that we're on, and it takes two to turn the car around.
Yeah, you mentioned Matt Walsh, Destiny, who I just think is absolutely despicable. And you're right. He's literally inciting violence. And you said that on social media, and I agree with you on that. And there's the Steve Bannons of the world and others, and Alex Jones, who we shouldn't be surprised. This means war. You know, we're going to war. Why? Because one 22-year-old lunatic, who, by the way, is not a Democrat, decided to do something horrible. And they're saying we're at war now. Why can't they just say, hey, let's all call out what the Democrats are saying? We need to all call out political violence. It's never the answer, but yet Republicans want to put the blame on the other side. And it just, Destiny, it just drives me crazy where we're at right now as a country.
Yeah, and I would say I'm good at both sides. I just want to say both sides are acting immoral right now. Republicans need to call their side out, and Democrats need to stop. Elizabeth Warren had the only correct answer, and so did Mehdi Hassan. The Republicans need to tell people to stop. And to see the Democrats say it over and over again. I was just on Piers last year. I think I'm going on again Monday, and it's going to be the exact same conversation I had last year after the firefighter got shot. It's this cycle that we're locked in, this death spiral of bad thing happens. Every Democratic leader comes out and says, guys, we all need to calm down. All the Republicans are saying it's time for war. And then the cycle repeats over and over and over again. You know, go figure, the temperature's not being turned down at all. Donald Trump is still ratcheting up the insane rhetoric over and over and over again. 2 days before the shooting, he's posting pictures on Truth Social about going to war in Chicago. You know, every single thing about this administration is comically over the top, like glorifying violence. Whether we're talking about Kristi Noem taking videos in front of cages of people in El Salvador, whether we're talking about laughing that it's called Alligator Alcatraz, or, you know, celebrating the renaming of the DOD to the Department of War, or, you know, going from the president of No New Wars to celebrating our bombing of Iran. Like, whether you agree or disagree individually, I'm just saying that like every single thing about this administration, at every single point, they have taken the worst turn to make things more radical and more violent. And he is showing zero willingness to turn it around, even after one of the most important conservative figures just got assassinated. Like Charlie Kirk was probably one of the larger, more influential conservative figures in the United States. And that's not enough to tell him like, well, maybe we need to all kind of chill a little bit.
Yeah, you're right. I feel like the last time that really happened was after 9/11, and we just had the anniversary yesterday where Republicans and Democrats, at least for a few days, were able to come together. This was a 22-year-old young white male raised by a conservative Mormon family. That's what this is.
And people, go look at the folks who were saying, oh, they had transgender messages, scribed on the bullet casings. Go read up what they actually said. Go read up
so
the
let's
police
talk
report.
about that.
You
Let's
got
talk
it?
about that.
Tell 'em.
Yep. So let's talk about that because that's more misinformation. You know what? I'm glad you brought that up. Okay, so this is what I've learned in doing my own research on this. It hasn't been officially confirmed, but some gun experts suggesting the bullets may have been produced by Turan ammo. Such bullets are stamped with the manufacturer's mark TRN. And if such bullets were used by the shooter, allegedly, it's possible that an overeager bigot saw TRN and interpreted that as trans instead of Turan. So these are the facts that are being brought out by the investigation, by the report. And I did some research on this. It says TRN. It probably has nothing to do with trans. It has to do with the ammo company.
That would not surprise me
at
all, brother. At all.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it was like something like take this. I don't know if I can say that word, so I'm not going to say it. But go read up what the bullet cases actually said. And again, it doesn't lead me to believe that this was a left-leaning, Democrat extremist. It's somebody. And let me ask you this, Brian: what sense would this make for us as Democrats? What's the gain here? Because from where I'm standing, this whole situation is a lose-lose for Democrats and our agenda, really. So it's like, what did we have to gain from this? And my second question is, if this guy was dressing up as Donald Trump, clearly grew up in an area that was very conservative, Mormon, what flipped in this guy to go after Charlie Kirk, who is pretty much, an ally of Trump's?
Well, it's interesting you bring that up. I do also find it timely and interesting that Charlie Kirk, this is one of the few things I agree with him on. And he just said this last week that he wanted the Epstein files to be released. I'm not saying that was a motive for the shooter. All I'm saying is I find that very, very interesting. And then Donald Trump is asked a little bit more, how are you holding up the loss of Charlie Kirk today? 2 seconds he talks about Charlie Kirk, and then he starts rambling about other stuff. It's just the whole situation is very
baseball game last night.
Yeah, very weird. You're talking about a baseball game, and supposedly this was your friend.
You're at the baseball game doing this, he
has no empathy. He's a sick person. But Charlie Kirk is the guy that said empathy is a bad thing. It's dangerous. Now, what normal human being would make a statement like that? What normal human being would get on a plane and be worried if their pilot is black? These are the things that Charlie Kirk stood for. Okay, misogyny, sexism, racism, transphobia. And guess what? The last few seconds of Charlie Kirk's life, that's what he was talking about. He was, talking about trans shootings, and he said too many instead of saying the appropriate thing, which would have been, listen, there are very few people that have been responsible for mass shootings that are trans people. It's more of a gun problem than a trans problem. But no, he downplayed that, and he attacking trans and gang violence. What does he mean by that when he talks about gang violence? Black violence. That's what he's talking about. So the last words out of his mouth were, in my opinion, with racial tones. I mean, that's who Charlie Kirk was in the last 5 seconds of his life.
I mean, that's who he was, period. That's why I struggle to, responding with some of these people. They're doxing the left. They have a website dedicated to us where they're doxing all of us, and sending people after our employers and whatnot. I mean, these people have lost their minds. And Charlie Kirk, look, the facts are he was a racist and a bigot. Like, there's more than enough videos and statements from this guy to support that claim. Yep. I'm not pulling it out of thin air. It's not a partisan statement. It's a fact. The guy defined racist and bigot. So to see the government using taxpayer dollars, and by the way, if Donald Trump comes out and says, oh, I'm paying for Charlie Kirk shit, just want to remind you that all the money he has been siphoned out of us, the taxpayers. So we're still paying for it one way or the other.
I heard a story, and again, I don't know if this is true or not, but I heard a story that Tiger Woods was donating some money And again, I can't confirm that or not. I've heard that from a few people. I don't know if that's true. I'm just amazed that anybody that would be a minority would do. Now, listen, if you care about his kids and his family, that makes sense to me. But Charlie Kirk is somebody that, for me at least, will always be remembered as a very hateful person who did a lot of bad. Now, if MAGA Republicans out there want to say, "Oh, he was this great person. He would have been the president one day," I hope he would have never been the president. But listen, people out there could have different opinions on politics, but to me, this isn't about policy. To me, this was about hate.
Hate, human rights. So many of us say this. We can disagree on policy. If you don't think we should fund, public schools, I don't mind having that debate with you on why it's a bad idea to defund public schools. That's a political debate to me.
Right.
But when you start debating about a person's, validity based off of their skin color, or you start dismissing their accomplishments because they must have been a DEI student or higher, those aren't political issues. Those are social issues. And in that context, Charlie Kirk was one of the leading hateful people spreading the rhetoric and dividing America. His whole platform was literally about dividing America. And on top of that, he was going in and using the propaganda that he pushed in colleges and even in high schools. So what he was honestly doing for the conservative right wing was being their recruiter at the college and high school levels.
Yep.
Like, he was dangerous.
Yep, I agree. And again, I go back to saying what we both have been saying over the course of the last several days. He did not deserve this. This is horrible. I feel for his family.
Celebrating it.
Yeah, we're certainly not celebrating it in any way, shape, or form. I was very emotional the other day not because I felt so horrible for Charlie Kirk so much as the circumstances of it, his family, everybody that was there. It was gruesome, and it's bad for America. And it was emotional to have to talk about that. And I was supposed to be debating Charlie Kirk in some sort of roundtable debate in December in Phoenix. Obviously, that's not going to happen. And listen, I'm tired of people, when a tragedy happens, blaming transgenders or blaming a political party. We need to talk
Before
about
we even know who it is.
Right. Let's talk about guns. Let's talk about how easy it must have been for this 22-year-old to get his hand on this weapon. Let's talk about guns getting in the hands of the wrong people. Let's try to save lives. I don't care what the color of their skin is. I don't care whether they're a Republican or a Democrat. MAGA Republicans refuse to do that. They refuse to do that. Have any of them even mentioned once, how did this 22-year-old get his hands on this gun? Clearly he was mentally deranged. No. The radical left. Blame the radical left. And I'm so tired of it. These MAGA Republicans, they have no solutions. None. Zero.
No, and then when you call for gun control, they get mad at you. Like, that's your solution? It's like, yeah.
Or you're making
do you have something better?
Political. Yeah, you're making it political, even though for the last 3 or 4 days, all they've been doing is blaming the left for the shooting, not even knowing who the shooter was.
Exactly. So it's just kind of like, okay, there's no reasoning with these people. And unfortunately, exactly what a lot of us were worried about is what's happening, is that it is only making the divide between the sides even wider and deeper.